Black Lives Matter, abortion, gun control, trans rights. What if the intense social debates of our time were mostly just misunderstandings? Most of the big social political conflicts of our time can be boiled down to one vicious circle. I'm going to call it the death of discourse. People don't listen to each other because our symbology is broken, because people don't listen, and round we go. We live in the information age with basically endless knowledge at our fingertips. But that also makes the race so fast that nobody really has time to read all that stuff. So instead we deal in symbols as a kind of shorthand, especially when it comes to the big stuff, deep, complex, multifaceted issues. We don't really have time to dive that deep, so we try and reduce the conversation to symbols. The problem with that is it doesn't work. These symbols just end up being ambiguous, inflammatory. I'd say sometimes even intentionally so. I totally get the temptation here though, like I'm a writer, I'm a lyricist. Symbols have like this legit power to pack so much meaning into so little space. But also speaking as a philosophy geek, that is exactly the problem. You see, communication is a process. And even if a picture is worth 1,000 words, not everyone is going to get the same 1,000 words from the same picture. Like seriously, take any front you can think of in the culture wars, and there, right at the center of the fray, you're going to find a symbol. And every time, I promise you, nobody even agrees on what the f*** it actually means. And that is exactly the problem. Like, can you imagine the USA without the South? I'm not from there, but what would America or the world even be without jazz, blues, barbecue, rock and roll, bourbon, New Orleans, Lovell, Memphis, Atlanta? Sure, it's got like serious baggage to deal with, like everywhere else in the world. But it's also a beautiful place like nowhere else in the world. And there's a symbol for this whole beautiful idea. Oh wait, is that actually the symbol for I think anyone with too much of a tan should be owned like cattle? Because that's basically the same thing, right? Or how about this leg instead? Does that mean something like, sure, everyone should obviously be treated with basic human dignity here and ideally everywhere? Or is it more like, here is the flag of the approved enlightened ideology for the glorious future of mankind? Anyone who dares to not have the approved enlightened ideology's flag, plastered across their front door is obviously an undesirable enemy of society, and should therefore be labeled unsafe, intimidated into silence, and severely punished for their wrongness. What does that flag stand for? I think actually a lot of times it's even a third thing. It's not so much punish the non-believer for their insufficient enthusiasm. It's more like, sure, here's our flag, please don't punish us. Kind of a protection racket, maybe. And the list goes on. Pro-life. Is that where we're trying to not slaughter millions of innocent children? Or is that where we want to take state control of women's bodies? Or pro-choice. Is this where we want to not create a police state? Or is it where we actually want to slaughter millions of innocent children? Or feminism. Is this kind of like women should have the same rights as men? Or does it mean that we must break down the entire world to make sure women are exactly half of everything everywhere? For that matter, what's a woman? Is that like sex, biology? Or is it gender, the social construct? Or is it whichever one you don't mean so that we can fight about it? Or how about Black Lives Matter? Like obviously Black Lives Matter, but what is the implication there? Or how about All Lives Matter? Obviously not all lives matter because you still eat food and you still kill mosquitoes, right? But what's the implication there? Is this something noble, or are you trying to say that black lives don't matter? Or the right to bear arms? Which problem are we fighting there? Or one of my personal favorites for ambiguity, defund the police. Which is like, hey, do the local police really need tanks and grenade launchers? Or are you really just trying to say, f*** the police, and also take all of their money? Or while we're at it, how about the latest buzzword, equity, or the MAGA hat, or even wearing a f***ing mask in the middle of a global pandemic? You see, this is everywhere. There are usually good reasons for both a generous and an unfair take on any symbol, and the disconnect between those two tends to play on stereotypes and caricatures, maybe even more than real people. Don't get me wrong, people are stupid. For every stereotype, there are people who are the reason it exists, but there are always exceptions too. Likewise, for these symbols, they can stand for all kinds of good or bad or even just really different things, depending on who uses them and how. Communication is a process. That's why these ambiguous symbols fail us. It's because that communication process doesn't happen. Tensions run high and it just turns into a shouting match that accomplishes nothing. There are even people out there who push these symbols specifically because they want us to accomplish nothing. But we don't have to play their game. There is no substitute for a good old-fashioned yarn. You want to actually solve a disagreement? Go find someone rational and talk through it. Learn, grow, improve yourself and the world around you. You can accomplish heaps in a very short time, but if you want to accomplish nothing, then sure, yeah, get in a shouting match, have fun. I'm convinced that 90% of the world's problems could be solved with better communication. And that is not easy for me to say, because I'm not a people person. It's not so easy to do, either. Great communication tends to look simple, but actually be pretty hard to pull off. For the big stuff, though, it's always worth it. You are smarter in 5 minutes.
There is